41 teams have made their way to the fairest Cape for what has become South Africa's only motorsport long-distance endurance event, the Castrol Endurance Challenge. Entries vary from old-school veteran motorsportsmen to the hopeful up-and-comers who can only afford one race a year and see the Castrol 7-hour as value for money. The event is for production cars only, so many or most of the Stanek Group N competitors have entered the race. This race will decide the South African production car champion for 1991. Opel, BMW and Nissan have their Group N teams entered, and like the Stanek series, the stakes are high and the competition tough. All the teams had experienced extensive damage during the practice sessions. Mike Briggs suffered this front-end damage to his reserve car during a test session when he T-boned a spinning car under braking in Stanek Bend. Dion Joubert blew his BM's motor in practice, while Nick of the roly-poly De Waal fame damaged the Uno Turbo he was to share with teammate Hannes Grobler. Having won the event 2 years in a row, Opel are looking for a hat-trick. Their plan of action from Motorsport manager Peter Laird.
Basically what we're going to do is we're going to try and run our cars as fast as possible to put a lot of pressure on the BMs. One thing we do know is if the BMs run very fast, that they must probably have to change rear pads. So we're going to pace ourselves at a comfortable pace, but at the same time just drag the BMs along with us, and that'll put a lot of pressure on them.
Opponent Paul Weaver leads the factory BMW team's attack, determined to break the Opel's run of success over the years.
Paul, it's down to BMW versus Opel now. We've just heard what the Opels are going to do. How are you going to play this from the early stages?
I think Michael will probably try and break away a little bit, and so we're going to keep Tony right with him, with Hannes backing him up. But I think the first hour is going to be critical. And I think with the pads we've got, we're not planning to change the rear pads. So we'll only be having 3 pit stops, and I believe Opel will be having 4. So whatever they make up in the first hour, we believe we can actually save in the pits. So I think it'll be very close.
Shortly before the start, disaster strikes the JSN-entered BMW of Robbie Smith and Peter Lance. A misplaced jack tears a pipe from the fuel tank, emptying the contents onto the pit lane and causing a fire hazard in the process. With thumping hearts, the drivers prepare for the 2 p.m. start. It's no surprise to find Briggs and Viana heading up the field. The Peter Lance BMW, fuel tank now intact, stands ready in its 3rd place on the grid. Farouk Dango shares his speedy car sales Opel with Neil Brunk. Farouk, driving the first shift, starts up the Opel as the cars come under the starter's orders. Clerk of the course, Brian Hoskins, sends the 41-strong field onto their pace lap. Ahead lies 7 hours and almost 280 laps of the Killarney racetrack. At 2 o'clock, the lights turn green on the 1991 Castrol Endurance Challenge. With a mass of horsepower unleashed, the full field of classes A, B, C, D and E production cars head into Continental Corner. The faster Class A cars are made up of Opel Superbus Cadets and BMW 325 ISs. Class B is a mixture of Opels and Volkswagen Golfs. The 2 factory-entered Uno Turbos dominate Class C, with 2 Toyotas and 3 Golf GTIs making up the numbers. Class D has Opels, Fords and Mazdas doing battle, while Class E is predominantly Opel Cubs with 2 Toyotas and 1 Uno Pacer in tow. While Mike Briggs at the wheel of car number 1 soon has 200 meters of space between his Opel and Viana's BMW, Geniel de Villiers retires his Laser, becoming the first statistic of the race. Despite the slowly widening gap, Viana keeps the Opel in his sights. Aware of the Opel team's tactics, Tony is the only driver capable of matching the leading Opel's pace. Locked in battle half a lap behind are the 2 Uno Turbos, Neil Stevens' Class B Opel and the Golf driven by Chris Aberdeen. Lap by lap, the long string of cars settle into the pace, finding their positions on the crowded track. By now, nerves have also settled on the track and in the pits. Having had a clear track ahead of him for the opening laps, Mike finds himself amidst the back markers as he starts to lap the field. Side by side from the start, Peter Lance and Farouk Dango sweep down on the leading Class E cars of Wyndham and O'Sullivan, themselves engrossed in a race of their own. Opel fans rejoice when Mike Briggs appears at Conti Corner without Viana in tow. Tony brings the Winfield BMW into the pits with a gear lever linkage adrift, the fault effectively taking the sting out of the BMW challenge. A long and demanding drive lies ahead of Tony Viana and teammate Jeff Goddard. Leon Marie suddenly finds himself in second place, the two factory Class A Opels now in a comfortable first and second overall. Peter Lance has lost Farouk Dangor and has caught the second Winfield BMW, driven now by Hannes Oosthuizen. An unforgiving race continues as Stephen and Aberdeen hang on to the closely matched Uno Turbo twins. Regrouped in formation, the BMWs form a formidable sight as they set about catching the leading Opels. The 20-minute pit stop has dropped Viana to the bottom of the scoreboard, but still 6 hours remain in the race, and Viana is a fighter. Back in the Opel pits, it's all smiles as the bright yellow cadet superbosses continue to dominate and set the pace. Dave Beecroft and Bruce Mitchell find the pace too much for their Mazda EGI and retire after only 30 laps. Out on the circuit, a broken sideshaft sidelines Don Cray's Golf as the three BMWs continue to step up the pace in their quest to catch the Opels. Cray's mechanics are soon on hand as a spare sideshaft replaces the broken part. With about an hour and a half behind them, the crews begin to prepare for the first scheduled service stop and driver change. The Unos, with their smaller fuel tanks, are among the first to make the stop. Nick de Waal hands over to Hannes Grobler, while the very competent Nissan Motorsport crews prepare the car for the next stint of the race. With fresh front tyres and a full tank of fuel, Hannes is soon back on the track.
How'd it go, Nick? Fine, thanks, Rob. Is it going well at the moment? Okay.
Pit stops are what endurance racing is all about. Time spent servicing the car must be made up on the track. German driver Rolf Deubel hands the Sebat Opel over to Willie Hepburn with a very quick stop. Peter Laird decides to bring the Works Opel number 2 in first, giving the crew a chance to practice and find any possible servicing problem that may exist with untried equipment. Grant McCleary prepares for his drive as Briggs flashes past the pit wall just meters away. It's all action as Leon Marie stops the car on the markers and makes way for Grant. The Opel crews have been honed to a very specialized team, having serviced the cadets during their record-breaking runs and various Group N races. With a greater fuel carrying capacity, the BMWs can stay out longer, possibly having to do one less stop. The JSN 325IS is one of the first BMWs into the pits. Chris Aberdeen about to hand the Class B Golf over to Peter de Weert as Robbie Smith waits anxiously to get going. In his effort to expand the lead, Briggs has run the Opel almost dry and parks the cadet as Robbie Smith wheel spins his way back into the race. Roddy Turner, Briggs's longtime and equally talented teammate, takes up station at the wheel. Restricted only by the time it takes to refuel the tank, the crew manage a very quick stop of 47 seconds.
How's it going? So far very good. I've set a very fast pace. I'm trying to break the BMs. I'm hoping by going that quickly I don't think they can keep up with that pace. And so far the car is really good. I'm doing those times actually quite easily. So the car hangs it together. I think this will be a good one for us.
Hannes Oosthuizen yet to make a stop in the BMW. Lance Rothschild put an end to the Vic Rich Basil Mann effort when he rolled the Opel Cub coming out of the Saybat sweep. The team had completed 86 laps and were going no further. Racing together, the two Class A Opels throw caution to the wind as they become involved in a race of their own. Dion Joubert takes over the wheel of the number 4 BMW and sets about chasing the flying Opels. So, with 2.5 hours gone, the scoreboard shows no major surprises. Credible drives from Farouk Dangor and Cape Townian John Craig, who lie 4th and 5th respectively. Veteran Paddy Driver and Tommy Dunn going very well in the second Saybat Opel, currently in 7th position behind the Lance Smith BMW. But still, the Opels dominate both the scoreboard and the track. As locked in battle, they break even their own lap records. Peter Laird showing signs of concern at the pace being set by his drivers. At 4:45, his worst fears are realized when the second cadet with Grant McCleary at the wheel starts misfiring and is brought into the pits. While the mechanics set about finding the problem, John Round, the third driver in the team, settles into the driver's seat, ever hopeful the problem will be solved. Dion Joubert soon drives his BMW into the hard-fought-for second spot as frantically the Opel mechanics search for the gremlin that has crippled the second cadet. Tony Viana and Jeff Goddard have worked their way up to 16th place from the back of the field. With worn brake pads now a serious factor, Robbie Smith finds himself trying too hard at the end of the long straight and ends up off the track at Stannick Bend. Adrian Burford in the Class E Uno Pacer, entered by the Guild of Motoring Journalists, gets sent on his way into the outfield as he tangles with the faster cars at Saybat Sweep. Adrian, along with fellow journalists Dion Skumon and Ferdy de Vos, barely made the starting line after a spate of crashes during the practice sessions. Having recovered, Adrian rejoins the throng of cars which have spread out over the length of the track. The faster cars now lapping the slower cars every 3 or 4 rounds. Rolf Deubel, back at the wheel of the Saybat Opel, has the ominous task of driving the shift before the scheduled brake pad change. Having spun the car once, Rolf loses control on entering the pit lane, slamming the cadet into the pit lane wall. Marshals are soon on the scene, clearing the entrance to the pits. A marshal, his back unwisely turned towards the oncoming traffic, gets nudged by the Nick de Val Uno as Nick urgently makes his way to his pit.
Yeah, I had a brake failure and the pedal fell through. There was no chance to get the car stopped. So I used the handbrake and spun. And by mistake I hit the wall.
At 6 o'clock, Dion Joubert brings the leading BMW in for new brake pads, tyres and a driver change. The heavier BMW having worn through the linings faster than the Opel. As the drivers trade places, the pit crew get right down to the task of replacing the now red-hot brake pads. The entire stop takes only 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Hannes is able to rejoin the race, having lost a minimal amount of time. Briggs has still to make the extended stop, while the rested Hannes Oosthuizen, now with fresh brakes and tyres, sets about chasing the leading Opel. Just 10 minutes later, Mike Briggs receives instructions in his headphones to bring the cadet in for pads. The entire Opel team know only too well how important this pit stop is if they hope to keep the lead that the drivers have worked so hard to maintain. Sparky Bright and Steve Vine attack the front brakes with an urgency befitting the task at hand.
I need a disc! I need a disc! I need a disc!
While Sparky calls for a new brake disc, Hannes Oosthuizen relentlessly powers the BMW round the track. As a new disc is bolted to the axle, time ticks away for the Opel team. Roddy Turner, sitting restlessly in the driver's seat, counts the laps as the BMW flashes by. The BMW team make the most of the situation, urging Hannes via the radio to quicken his pace. Before long, the Winfield BMW takes over the lead. The stop has taken almost 4 minutes. The Opel team, aware that they have lost the lead, try desperately to calculate the difference.
One minute left.
Roddy Turner has the daunting task of chasing Oosthuizen, who is now on the same lap, but some 40 seconds ahead of the Opel. Brian Gilmore and Sean Watson-Smith in the Class D cadet, now 6th overall, leading their class and the index of performance. Hannes Grobler and Nick de Waal lead Class C and are 4th overall. Their teammates Johan Coetzee and Peter de Waal are currently 7th. The twilight conditions are demanding on the drivers, with the low sun setting into their eyes. The Larry Wilford, Chris Clark Sabat Toyota taking the long and dusty way round Conti Corner. Under these conditions, Roddy Turner has his work cut out as he chases the leading Winfield BMW. Both drivers are aware of the opposition's lap times fed to them via their radios, so both adjust their efforts accordingly, creating a stalemate cat-and-mouse situation. With the sun sinking lower into the horizon, the car's headlights slowly become effective. Around the track, the spectators huddle around braai fires as the darkness is chilled by a cold Cape Sea breeze. On the track, darkness descends on a raging battle. With 5.5 hours gone and only 1.5 to go, the scoreboard shows Oosthuizen a full lap ahead of Roddy Turner. Both cars are now due for a driver change. Just a few laps behind, John Craig and Mike Moore hold 3rd position, ahead of the flying Nick de Waal and Hannes Grobler. The second Winfield BMW is up to 8th place, just ahead of the JSN car. Both are on the same lap. As the laps mount and time ticks by, confusion about the exact position of the two leading cars has Roddy and the Opel team in a quandary. So-called experts add to the confusion, making a tense situation somewhat worse. 3 teams of official scorers, cross-checking with the help of computers and sensor units, still have the BMW 40 seconds ahead of the Opel. With 20 minutes to go, the BMW crew are caught by surprise as Dion races into the pits with a flat rear tyre. Trolley jacks and air tools fly in all directions as the mechanics fumble with this unexpected emergency. Dion Joubert feels the Castrol Endurance Challenge slipping from his grasp. The left-hand rear rim had picked up a stone which the brake caliper jammed into the alloy rim. The fate of the BMW effort had been decided by luck. The Opel now leads the race. 7 hours exactly after the start, at a little after 9 o'clock, the checkered flag is given to the first passing car. The race is over and will be scored as of that lap. Words like disappointed, sad, dejected hardly come close to what Dion and Hannes feel deep down inside. But motorsport is about winning, and Mike and Roddy have worked hard to earn this moment of glory. A brave fight, back to 4th place by Lance and Smith, ahead of Class C winners de Waal and Grobler. Peter de Weert's Golf won Class B, Gilmore and Watson-Smith won Class D and Index of Performance, while Mike O'Sullivan and Carl Moller won Class E.
It's the 3rd year in a row for me, and it's also a 3rd time for Roddy, so we're making this event ours.
And for you, Roddy, what sort of drive did you have during the day?
Well, I had to settle the mid-stints and try and catch up after our rather lengthy pit stop. We made up a lot of time, and it's actually proved its point at the end. It's gone very well. The car has been excellent.
Now, Michael, this gives you the Production Car Championship for 1991.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago I lost it by half a point, so it's been a great year for me. I've won the South African Drivers' Championship, the Group N Class A, and now this. I think it's just a marvellous way to round off a season. But a title like that really goes to the whole team, because it's taken a whole year to do it, and it's an event like this where you really see teamwork. And we won the race in the pits today, and that's really great.